This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Siddarth Patil. Siddarth is the co-founder and COO at Comdex, a DeFi infrastructure layer for the Cosmos ecosystem. Welcome to the show, Siddarth.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for having me here.
Hey, it is a pleasure to have you here. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. Siddarth, I'll invite you to please introduce yourself. Really, I'd like to hear just a little bit about your background, your personal story, and what you've been doing in the lead up to co-founding Comdex.
For sure. I come from a background in traditional finance. So I started my career working in a wealth management firm. Spent about a year working there until I realized that I probably wanted to do something different. So I dived into investment banking role at a consulting firm. Spent another year working there as well. And, luckily for me, in that point in my life, which was around 2017, I stumbled into crypto. Again, luckily, I had a lot of friends who were already, involved in the crypto space, who were there to help me out, educate me, and kind of get me on board. And the more I kind of learned about crypto, the more I realized that, the potential of the technology that's underneath crypto is, immensely powerful, something that can definitely disrupt a lot of, traditional finance that we deal with, but also a lot of the global supply chain structures that prevail across the board. And that's when I kind of started realizing that the end game for this technology and this industry is to ultimately disrupt the supply chain as we know it, and started networking with a bunch of folks in the space at the time, and that's how I met my co-founder, and we had great alignment on this kind of fundamental ideology that the end game for blockchain is to disrupt the global supply chain, and that's how we started ideating about what Comdex would be, and started building Comdex in 2018 as initially a product to digitize the commodities trade industry, building a platform for SME and MSME enterprises from Southeast Asia to digitize their commodities and exchange them in a transparent and efficient manner on the blockchain. But in our journey of kind of building that out, we realized that the product would always remain incomplete until it could fulfill the larger requirements of payments and financing, which at the time didn't exist at an infrastructure level. And that's when we recognize the need for Comdex to serve more as an infrastructure layer that can facilitate several different, primitives of DeFi and traditional finance rather than being a singular product. And that's when we decided to, turn the Comdex product into a blockchain, which is a DeFi infrastructure layer. So presently, the Comdex chain has its own set of DeFi applications. It has a stablecoin, it has a DEX, it has lending borrowing. But more importantly, the chain is designed to be able to utilize that chain to build any kind of DeFi product, including products that integrate with traditional finance as well.
Yeah, thank you, Siddarth. And I remember, back in, I guess, 2018, when you guys were, looking at first launching Comdex, the supply chain on the blockchain was a big, if not predominant use case, particularly for enterprise. But yeah, it's fascinating that you've made that pivot, and I'm sure a number of other teams have made that pivot as well. And was that a smooth and easy transition, or was it just something that you kind of just a pivot that was forced upon you, if you like?
I would say a bit of both. A big part of it was, of course, when we kind of realized that the payment infrastructure is something that we had to build, we actually had a partnership already in place with Western Union, which, as we all know, is like one of the largest payments processors in the world. And the partnership was essentially to build an integration with our platform where every dollar that gets deposited into a specified whitelisted Western Union account gets a stable coin, or a US dollar stable coin gets issued against it, which is utilized in the app by these enterprises that use it. Unfortunately for us, by the time we went live, which was around mid 2020 with this product, COVID had hit the world. So of course we saw commodity volumes across the board just dry down completely. But more importantly, we saw a lot of regulatory changes that came into effect. More specifically, the Payment Services Act in Singapore. What that meant was we required a major payments processing license to be able to run a product like the one we had built with Western Union. And typically the waiting time and approval cycles for such a license were so long that it just didn't make sense for us to kind of pursue that for the timeline it would take to do that. And we also, simultaneously in 2020 kind of saw the emergence of DeFi summer in the Ethereum ecosystem. And DeFi was booming at that time. We recognized that this is something that's going to disrupt a lot of the kind of dealings in finance that we have in our day-to-day lives. And we've always kind of considered Cosmos ecosystem home, and recognized that eventually this wave of DeFi would catch on and make its way to the Cosmos ecosystem, and recognize that this would be kind of a gap that needs plugging, where someone needs to build this infrastructure layer that can facilitate creation of DeFi for Cosmos. So yes, a big part of it was kind of forced upon us by the circumstance of the time, but it also presented an opportunity for us to tap into, which we recognize would be tremendous if we were able to do it effectively.
Got it. Makes sense to me. Thank you, Siddarth. And yeah, look, talk to us a little bit more about Cosmos then, and how you ended up deciding to focus on the Cosmos ecosystem. With the various DeFi, almost turnkey solutions, which we'll get to soon.
Oh yeah. So back in 2018 itself, when we started ideating for the product and kind of got down to the nitty-gritties of how it would actually be implemented, the first kind of condition we had in mind was that we wanted to be proof of stake ready. We believed that proof of stake chains would be the future of blockchains as we know it. And at the time, Ethereum was still proof of work chain. So we started doing research on what are the different proof of stake ecosystems out there, and truly the only one that emerged to the top as kind of like the gold standard for proof of stake at the time was the Tendermint consensus by Cosmos. So that was a big driver towards why we chose the Cosmos ecosystem. Even in the nature of the product we were building, when we were tokenizing the commodities in the trading industry, what we were essentially doing was we were taking documents that signify the ownership of these commodities in the real world. Typically they're called OBLs, or bill of ladings, and we were tokenizing these documents as NFTs on the chain. And again, with tokenizing this document as an NFT came a lot of requirements of tokenizing various different attributes of the documents and a lot of different data points about the documents, which presented a scalability challenge if it was to be built on something like an Ethereum at the time. Because if and when this platform did scale up and get a lot of traction and a lot of usage, it would probably not be as efficient for the users to use it when it reached that scale. And again, in all of our kind of research, the tech stack that Cosmos had kind of emerged to be the superior choice of the time. And then throughout 2018, 2019, and 2020, consistently building using the Cosmos SDK, our developer team kind of built I would say, expertise in utilizing the Cosmos SDK, and it kind of became more and more native to our skill set. And we just decided to continue with the Cosmos ecosystem because we've been super bullish on where the ecosystem is headed.
Fantastic. Thank you, Siddarth. Talk to us then about, so, you describe Comdex as, I guess, like you can think of it as a layer one chain or infrastructure for the deployment of DeFi applications within the Cosmos ecosystem. And you call these like on-chain modules, right? So let's give us the kind of the high-level summary of what the vision is here, and then we can run through what some of those modules are.
Oh yeah. So when you look at any kind of financial instrument that we deal with, or typically the structure of any kind of financial transaction we enter into, a lot of the skeleton level details of how these transactions actually look and how these instruments are actually constructed are just a composition of several different sub transaction structures.
Yeah.
So in essence, what we realized was that all of finance could be ultimately reduced down to a set of transactional structures, which, if you can code them into modules, can be utilized in kind of like a customizable plug and play fashion. So what that means is, to build any kind of DeFi application, whether it's something like a stablecoin, something like a DEX, something like a lending borrowing platform, or even options or futures or perpetuals, ultimately it's just combining a set of transactions and a transaction types where you can modify certain parameters of those transactions and of those primitives, and ultimately arrive at the product that you desire, whether it's something like an options or futures or blah blah blah. So the vision with Comdex and the on-chain modules is essentially we've looked at all of these various primitives that prevail in DeFi and traditional finance and coded them into modules that anyone who wants to build DeFi can utilize in a much more efficient and quick manner. And ultimately, the end result of that is anyone who wants to launch any kind of DeFi product can utilize these modules, customize them, and plug them into whatever product they have in mind, and achieve a much faster go-to-market than if they were to go through the route of kind of launching their own app chain in the Cosmos ecosystem. Because launching an app chain comes with its own set of challenges. The beauty here is that all these modules are housed on a singular chain, and the governance of the chain is entirely focused on optimizing the chain to make sure these applications that sit on top of it run optimally. So it also then improves the overall kind of user experience when multiple applications are built and they interact with each other. So the grand vision of why we have these on-chain module approaches, it's not just to focus on individual products, but creating the capability that is utilized by anybody who wants to build a product to make it easier for them to do so.
Yeah, and that's what people used to call DeFi Lego, right? So
Absolutely.
it's more once you can piece the different modules together in different ways for different use cases. All sorts of interesting things can happen. Look, I mean, you don't need to run through all the modules, Siddarth, but I mean, well, there's the asset module, the vault module, liquidation module, Oracle, auction, so lend, you can tell, rewards, token mint, you can kind of tell by the name what they do, but maybe just pick one or two that you think are especially interesting and give us some examples of perhaps existing and more exciting, perhaps potential use cases that they can facilitate.
For sure. From the ones you mentioned, I think Vault is something that's highly prevalent, not just in the Comdex ecosystem, but all of DeFi. Essentially, what Vault allows you to do is take any asset of value and treat it as a collateral to issue loans against it. Very similar to how loans kind of operate in the traditional finance space, where you can, collateralize your house or collateralize a piece of land and take a loan against it. The Oracle then comes into play because for the bank to be able to recognize the value of that land, it needs to understand what the price of that land is in the market at the time, so it can value that land and then also accordingly decide how much is the size of the loan it can issue to you. So similarly, in the Vaults module, we combine it with oracles so that we are able to read the price of the asset that is sitting in the vault as a collateral. Ultimately, the loan is issued against the asset that sits in the vault. Again, when that asset, if it's, let's say, a crypto asset like Atom, it can have a volatile price where the prices may fluctuate up and down depending on the flows of the market. At times when the price drops, you want to ensure that the debt that is, issued against that collateral remains solvent, which means the value of the collateral should never fall below the value of the debt that is issued against it. And if it does come close to that point, what happens in traditional finance is, the bank liquidates your asset, which means it sells your land or it sells your house to make sure that the loan it issued out to you is solvent. And similarly on the platform as well, the liquidations on the platform are triggered when the price oracle tells the vault that the loan is under collateralized. So what the liquidation then does is it takes the asset that sits in the vault and then sells it on the open market to recover the amount of the outstanding debt and any penalties that might be attached to it. And this is very important to kind of maintain the health of the debt on the protocol. So ultimately, these individual models, when you think of modules, when you think of a vault, why a vault exists and what it does, you realize that it requires an oracle. Then you realize that it also requires something that can perform the liquidation. It requires something that can define what a liquidation looks like, whether it's a direct sale or whether it's an auction. So each of these pieces are built out as modules, which give complete flexibility to a builder to customize how their app should be. So I think the best example for that is the stablecoin that we have built on the chain, which is the CMST stablecoin on Harbor Protocol. For those who are familiar, it's very similar to the model that MakerDAO has for DAI, where users can create over collateralized position of Ethereum to borrow DAI from the protocol. Similarly, on Hago, you could create over-collateralized positions of assets like Atom, Osmo, ST Atom, ST Osmo, and a whole lot of them like WBTC, WETH, and take CMST as a loan from the protocol. And then, of course, we monitor the price of the asset, whichever it is, whether it's Atom or Osmo, to ensure that that loan or that debt is solvent. And if at all there is volatility, we require a liquidation to be triggered, and that liquidation is performed through an auction. So each of these individual components are utilized as modules from the chain directly.
Yeah, got it. So look, if there's any developers listening and you want to learn more about those modules, perhaps, combine some of them and build your own dApps on Comdex, just go to the website, which is comdex.one/modules. But of course, the link will be in the show notes. And of course, you guys have you've mentioned one of them. You already have quite a significant ecosystem around Comdex, various dApps and platforms that I guess you guys and the community have been working on. So you talked about the Harbor protocol, but there's a DEX I can see. There's Commodo, there's ShipFi. That's about NFTs, isn't it? So I don't know, just talk through some of these different platforms that are now, starting to be, I guess, the first wave of platforms building out the Comdex ecosystem, Siddarth.
Oh, yeah. So as I already mentioned, the stablecoin, which is CMST, we have cSwap, which is a DEX, essentially, very similar to DEXs that users would be, used to using, let's say, Uniswap V2 or other DEXs in the ecosystem. Then we have Commodo, which is a lending borrowing platform. What that allows you to do is essentially, lend your assets out on the platform that others can borrow, or you could, collateralize your assets to borrow other assets. The end goal of that is that you can kind of unlock a whole lot of different strategies for yourself, whether you want to lever up on some things or whether you want to kind of hedge yourself by going short on a particular asset and long on another. So people can combine these different applications in different ways to derive their own strategies for how they would like to, operate in the DeFi space that we have built out. With application like ShipFi, it's a longer term play that we're working on, where we want to combine all of what we have built until now. So that includes the commodities space, it includes the stablecoin, it includes the capability to, collateralize assets and borrow against them, to ultimately disrupt the supply chain space as we know it. So what ShipFi will be is it will allow institutions and commodities trading houses to collateralize their commodity assets, which are stored on chain as NFTs, to then issue loans against them, and the loans would be in the form of CMST, which is the stable coin. So ultimately, what that does is allows these institutions to access financing from a decentralized ecosystem, which is especially powerful for SME and MSME enterprises, which typically don't have this kind of access to financing and at these kind of rates in this realm that they operate in. What it also does for us as users, it opens up our access to a whole new range of asset classes in the real world that we don't have access to because of several, jurisdictional reasons and kind of multiple red tapes that kind of get placed across the place. So the end goal with something like ShipFi is to combine everything that we've built on the DeFi side and everything that we've built on the CeFi side and kind of bridge them together. But of course, as I said, for something like a ShipFi to work, there's a lot of work that still needs to go in. We, of course, need to, scale the stablecoin to a point where it is ready for institutional adoption. The regulatory landscape is ever evolving. So we're always waiting for the time when institutions are friendlier in their approach towards crypto assets and crypto ecosystems, and especially crypto infrastructure to operate the businesses that they do. So that's kind of the end game. But in terms of our roadmap, we have a lot more planned out on the DeFi side of things. As I mentioned, there would be, options, protocols, futures, and perpetuals being built over the course of the coming future. And we're also in talks with a few independent teams who have approached us with, products that they have in mind that can work complementary to the solutions that already exist on the chain. So that's pretty much what's in store for what's going on at Comdex right now.
Yeah, fascinating, Siddarth. And, I'd love to zoom out then. You're talking about building all these different products, but at the moment there's a little bit of a kind of, I guess, both certainly macro uncertainty and regulatory uncertainty as well around the world, particularly in the US. Biden administration is reasonably antagonistic towards crypto at the moment. How hard is it to kind of plan and build for the future when you kind of don't know exactly where those kind of regulatory signals are going to go? I mean, the SEC, always mixed signals from the SEC. They don't seem to make it easy for builders to have a clear way forward sometimes.
I mean, I would be lying if I said it was easy. I think it's definitely, a bit of a challenge to kind of keep up with the ever-evolving landscape and ever-evolving kind of approaches that regulatory institutions take towards what's being built. But what I'm certain about is that there is definitely, tremendous potential in the technology that's utilized by DeFi and all of the applications that DeFi use. And every time we see a failure or a collapse in a centralized system, something we saw recently with the collapse of the banking with SVB and Silvergate and whatnot, it kind of highlights the vulnerabilities in centralized systems, which are very opaque and highly reliant on certain individuals to act with integrity, which you cannot always expect. So what that ultimately does is makes the case stronger for systems that are more transparent, that are decentralized, and that's what DeFi is building. So I remain optimistic that the regulations will come around when they do recognize the power of this. Of course, to some extent, I feel like why it is such a battle between regulations and what's being built is to some extent the opaqueness is designed to be there because it allows some of the entities in power to maintain their power. And when these structures become transparent, it's ultimately a challenge to their power. So maybe that could be one of the reasons why regulations aren't so friendly towards what's being built out in the decentralized realm of things. But I remain my conviction remains strong that there is always going to be kind of recognized value for what's being built in the decentralized world because it thrives on transparency, and ultimately that's what everyone should desire.
Very nicely said, Siddarth. Thank you. I enjoyed that. Well, talk to us then. Are there because right now it is, I suppose everyone knows, it's a little bit of a difficult time in crypto, but as we potentially see some early signs of the bear market perhaps thawing, what do you see in terms of, I don't know, any metrics that you watch to see kind of, where perhaps the growth will come from in the next cycle? Or is DeFi on Cosmos healthy as it is? Where does the next wave of users come from? What have you got your eye
on? I think the next wave of users, I mean, it's kind of like a longer answer, I would say. One part of it is, of course, users themselves will need to become more educated and more aware to recognize why the things we build in the decentralized realm are valuable to them. But as we do that as well, us as builders on the decentralized side of things, I think one of the things that the industry as a whole needs to tackle is the UX is what I believe is something that needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
Even to this day, when you think about something like a MetaMask wallet and trying to get your relatives or your parents to open one and set one up, it seems like such a challenge. And I at times feel nervous about whether or not I'm doing the right things with my MetaMask wallet in terms of if I'm, keeping the OPSEC in place, keeping my seeds safely. And with this challenge, for someone who's completely new to this space, it acts as a barrier for them to enter this space. So I think one big breakthrough that needs to happen to drive the next huge wave of users into the space is UX itself, where onboarding of new users into the ecosystem needs to be made smoother, and it needs to be made designed in a way that users are used to with the current set of systems they deal with. And I think as soon as that is something that's cracked, it'll definitely draw a lot more users to the space. Of course, as you mentioned, there is a bit of a macro downturn right now. We see kind of downturns in both the traditional finance space as well as in the decentralized finance space and crypto as a whole. But these things are cyclical, so there will definitely be an upturn to kind of undo the effects of this downturn. And as and when that comes around, I'm hoping that the space has taken several, steps forward in terms of enhancing the user experience, so that when that next wave of users is ready, it's a smoother journey to get them into our side of things.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Siddarth. I reckon we go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off. We'll have some fun. We'll run you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. But before we do that, just please direct users, developers, DeFi power users, DeFi beginners, anyone you like, just again, to tell people where they should go to learn more about what you guys are building at Comdex and how, I guess, those potential different groups can get involved. What should they do?
Oh yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, our website is one of the best ways to get to everything that you need to know about Comdex. So it's comdex.one. From the website, you should be able to navigate through all of our documentation, which helps you get an idea of what's being built. But of course, if you wanted to reach out to someone in the team and learn a bit more and probably figure out ways where you can get involved, from our website, you could easily make your way to our Telegram community chat, which is a very active place where we have several community members that discuss on a daily basis. We also have links to our Discord, so that's another great place to reach out. And I personally am very active on Twitter myself. So anyone who follows me on Twitter can just DM me. My username is SidP95. So I'm always open to chat with anyone who wants to learn more about Comdex and probably get involved.
I'm just going to find you on Twitter now, Siddarth. We just shout out your Twitter handle again.
It's SidP95. So the first three alphabets of my name followed by P, which is the first alphabet of my last name, and 95.
Yep, I got you. I'm already following you and you're following me, so that's all right. Let's go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll run Siddarth through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round back in 1 second.
For crypto indices and benchmarking, Brave New Coin's powerful indexing engine can calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. Brave New Coin's custom indices team delivers experienced consultancy, premium data, and trusted calculation. Contact BNC today to find out more.
Boom, and we are back, and I'm with Siddarth Patil. Siddarth, of course, is the co-founder and COO at Comdex, DeFi infrastructure layer and ecosystem for the Cosmos ecosystem. Siddarth, you may or may not be aware, but I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Oh yeah, it sounds exciting.
Sounds exciting, and I can tell you it's very exciting, Siddarth. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to run some questions at you. I just want your kind of honest answers, hot take style. No right or wrong way to do it. First question, a bit of a funny one for you. I think I know what you say, but where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I think leaning towards Bitcoin maximalist a bit more.
Really? That surprises me. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm like a closet Bitcoin maxi, I'd say.
Okay, then well, come on, I got to dig in a bit more. Is that just because, I mean, most people that come into crypto, they're kind of, you start with Bitcoin, and so for a lot of people, Bitcoin is, I don't know, it's like that. It's the wrong way to describe it, but your first love, first girlfriend, you always kind of have a soft spot for Bitcoin. Is it something like that?
Yeah, I kind of think of Bitcoin like the gateway drug for crypto. So Bitcoin is what got me into the space, and one of the first things I had strong conviction for was Bitcoin itself. So although I do believe in the ethos of multi-chain, but I also simultaneously remain a Bitcoin maxi. I think there's always going to be utility and product market fit for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much described my thoughts as well, Siddarth. So thank you for that. Very well said. Next question: what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
firmest conviction, crypto opinion is transparency will prevail. So systems that work towards transparency will prevail, but simultaneously privacy will. It's kind of like a trade-off where as much as transparency tech evolves, privacy tech must evolve as well. So we're going to see a wave of transparency tech and privacy tech simultaneously emerge in the coming times.
Yeah, like it. All right. Siddarth, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So, with that in mind, anything you like here, but, Comdex, DeFi, what does it start to look like in 10 years' time?
In 10 years, the goal is that it's something that users in the decentralized realm can utilize to access all kinds of DeFi. And institutions on the centralized finance spectrum can also utilize the infrastructure that Comdex has to run traditional finance transactions through the Comdex chain.
I like it. All right. Flip side of that, of course, is a famous quote by William Gibson, who famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, Siddarth, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
I mean, I've been dabbling around on ChatGPT an awful lot lately, and I think that's my sign for the future being here. And not just ChatGPT, but all kinds of AI with the fake images, the fake voiceovers, the fake rapper voices making raps and things like that. I think we're already there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, perfectly said, and I couldn't agree more. And yeah, the fake rapper, I was just, maybe we're even seeing the same tweet, but I shared a tweet yesterday with my partner, but it was someone, yeah, he wrote and recorded a rap, and then he had AI Kanye record the rap. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's the same one I saw.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing playing around with these, ChatGPT and Midjourney and the like. It feels like, yeah, we're living in exponential times, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess that kind of brings us to the final question, and it's appropriate. Siddarth, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Science fiction, I would say I really like the 2001 Space Odyssey movie. It's one of my favorite. I'd also say, yeah, I think 2001 Space Odyssey is my favorite.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick directing an Arthur C. Clarke classic. Yeah, doesn't get much more classic than 2001 A Space Odyssey. Great choice. Thank you, Siddarth. Hey, I've enjoyed chatting to you today. Been fun to learn all about what you guys are doing at Comdex. Nothing else to say really, except again, look, please do just share again those the websites, Twitter handles, all that good stuff, and again, just make the case for why people should come and build on Comdex.
Oh yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much, Andy, for having me here. It's been a fantastic conversation. Yeah, for those who are listening, if you guys are interested in getting involved in DeFi, especially now, I think with all the cases being made for the collapses of several centralized institutions and entities, it is the time now for DeFi and transparent systems to kind of take their moment out there. So if anyone who's listening wants to learn a bit more about what's being built at Comdex and get involved, do check out our website. It's comdex.one. You could also check out our Twitter. It's at Comdex Official on Twitter. And from there, you should be able to make your way to our Telegram, through our documentation, through our Discord. Our GitHub is open source, so you can always take a look at our code. And then you could always reach out to me on Twitter as well. My handle is SidP95, SIDP95. And yeah, my DMs are open for anyone who wants to chat and learn a bit more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Siddarth. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you, Andy. Take care.
All right, there you go. That was Siddarth from Comdex. Enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed listening to that. Just fascinating at the moment how, everyone is just deep into AI, isn't it? Yeah. Also fascinating how 2 years ago it was metaverse and NFTs. And yeah, less about metaverse these days, but man, AI, just incredible, the tools that we suddenly have available to us. And yeah, I don't really think we have a full grasp on just how quickly the world is going to change. And yeah, I mean, the potential intersections with, like, you know, crypto, decentralized blockchains, plus AI. Man, what a crazy time to be alive. Yes, indeed. Thank you for listening, team. Please do make sure you're subscribed to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you're using. But that is today's show. This was a Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See you.